Hey everybody, I'm Nick Layton.
And I'm Leah Bottima.
And we're the hosts of Were You Raised by Wolves?
Each week we try to make the world a kinder, nicer place.
Well, that's the idea, at least.
I mean, we try.
Have you ever wondered what to do if you're ghosted?
Or what to do when a friend asks you to borrow money?
Or the proper way to eat Cheetos?
You know, the big questions.
So please find Were You Raised by Wolves wherever you listen.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
We talk about food, we talk about music, with musical dudes. Finger on the pulse, snacky tunes.
Hello and welcome to Snacky Tunes. I'm your host, Darren Bresnitz. Thank you to all the well wishes and shout outs for our big milestone episode 600, which aired last week. We appreciate all the support from the community and look forward to bringing you more episodes, including this one. We sit down with Garrett, Bess, the host and creator of Bike to Bites, a incredibly beautifully shot show where he bikes across America to eat at some incredible restaurants. We talk about his journey into the world of food TV, our path crossing at the cooking channel, and what he likes to listen to when he's on the bike. And then it's a dive into the archive from a live performance with Moira Smiley. She's toured all over the world alongside the likes of Tune Yards and Solus. And she was here to share some incredible live performances and stories from her recently dropped album, In Our Voices. Also, big thank you to RJB, who had me on Muse News this past week to talk about the long history and interviews of Snacky Tunes. So thank you, RJ. And here we go. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy Snacky Tunes here on HRN. Garrett, welcome to Snacky Tunes. Appreciate you sitting down, making the time for us. Looks like a beautiful day in New Jersey. You gotten in a bike ride yet today?
Yesterday, I got a bike ride in. So today was when I was going to go. It was pouring rain this morning. Not that I'm afraid to ride in the rain, but given the opportunity to ride in this versus the rain, I'll take this. So
yeah. No. I don't doubt your dedication given how much you've biked, especially for the show. But if you have an option, might as well stay dry and be nice sunny day.
Exactly.
So I want to go back a bit to when you got into television and production and things like that, because you've been in it for 30 years. How did you first get into the industry? What brought you in?
How far do you want to go back?
I don't know. Take me from the beginning. Is it something you always wanted to do, or?
It was actually, but it took me kind of a little bit to figure out ultimately how to get there. As most of us figure out in life, it's not always the straight line that gets us to where we want to go. Sometimes we have to go in a circle. But, in high school, there was a local, back then, there was a local cable affiliate in the town that we lived in. And part of their charter with any town that they were setting cable up in was that they had to provide local programming. And I noticed that our particular cable outlet was not providing any local programming. So I went in and I made an argument. I think I was a freshman in high school. I made an argument that, there's a group of us that would like to do some programming around things that kids are doing here at the high school. And we have some show ideas. And at the time, the woman that was running that local cable outlet, she was really big personality, really interesting. Turns out she ends up, later in life, she is the mom of Charlie Puth. And Charlie grew up in, not too far from here.
Sure.
She is who I attribute to giving me my first break in television because, and her name is Debbie. And she said, "Okay, you want to do a show? Sure. We've got some cameras in here, because they had to provide this in order to get into the town. To put
of course.
So we started doing a show. Back then, it was called Cable Youth Network, CYN. And it was a group of kids from high school just doing like movie reviews and some basic stuff. So that was ultimately what got me really excited about wanting to produce television. And then I guess my sophomore year of high school, we took on something even more challenging, which was producing the first ever local televised telethon
Hmm.
for a charity. And in this case, one of the kids in our class was in remission from leukemia, and we
Wow.
wanted to do, raise money for the Leukemia Foundation. And so Debbie thought I was crazy, but we ended up actually pulling it off. It was live to tape because we
Sure.
couldn't do it live, and then we went and ultimately broadcast it at a later date. And then all of the kids were manning phones to take in the order, to take in the people wanting to make donations, the calls for people wanting to make donations. And that was kind of what set me on my path. Went off to college, went to Emerson College in Boston,
Oh yeah. I was
majored
up
in.
in Boston. I went to BU Com School.
Oh, great. I was
Yeah.
right down the
Yeah.
street. And great place to go to school, go to college, university. And I loved it there. And I majored in advertising and I minored in television production. And then I ended up right out of college, not doing anything in either of those things because
Sure.
couldn't get a job in
Yeah.
1988 after the market crashed in 87. But found my way into television by way of producing infomercials in the late 80s. And
Not RIP, but I feel like they're different now because that used to be a whole cottage industry.
oh, it was a huge industry, huge. And I remember the first infomercial I ever produced was with Wolfman Jack. And
Wow.
the audience might not even know who that is.
No, I think I'm even on the tail end of
Yes,
maybe
but it
knowing
was
who
the
that is.
first time we sold a record compilation even that phrase is kind of outdated today, but first time a record compilation was packaged in a 30-minute format and sold in an infomercial. And then from there ended up, continuing to do infomercial work and then commercial work, and then found my way into continuing my work in broadcast commercial production, selling my first company to Gray Advertising.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and then staying on, and then ultimately found my way back after 9/11 to wanting to produce television, and sold some of my Gray stock, invested in a pilot, shot a pilot, had no buyer, just wanted to do this thing and did it, and that ultimately got me an introduction to a gentleman at Travel Channel. And I ended up going in about 6 months later and selling my first series through into Travel Channel called Local Flavor with Joan Cusack.
It's so interesting because food and travel back then, especially for television, was nowhere close to where it was at the peak. I think it's maybe dipped a little bit back down these days. But the idea of going with a celebrity as the food connoisseur internationally just seems like a wild pitch back then.
It was a wild pitch. In fact, I remember the pitch like it's the back of my hand because it was the first time I ever pitched. I pitched the guy that gave me the entree into Travel Channel on the show that I speculatively produced. He ends up getting moved over to a different division of Discovery. He ends up going over to Discovery Health. The show that I pitched him gets put on the shelf because he can't make any decisions because the new person's coming in. So the new person comes in and he says to me, I promise you, I will get you, give me 6 months. I will get you the meeting with the new head of development at Travel Channel. You have my word. Well, he's one of the only people that I've met in my life in industry, specifically in the television industry, that honored what he said. He called me 2 weeks before that 6 months and he said, I got you this meeting. I want you to go in. And so I was, I had a partner in that project and she said, do not pitch that show that you pitched the guy that's now over at Discovery because it's old news, like you need to go in and sorry about that. You need to go in and pitch the show that that you and I've talked about doing. And I go, well, wait a second, like that's not even a show, that's just an idea.
Yeah.
And she said, well, wait a second, like it's a good idea. Just write it up, And I was like, okay. So I wrote it up literally on a piece of paper, like this.
Yeah.
Right? And I had it folded up like this in my briefcase. And I go in and I open the piece of paper and I'm meeting this woman and I start reading my pitch off the piece of paper. and I'm nervous. I've never really pitched before. She reaches across the table and puts her hand on my arm and goes, Garrett, put the piece of
Yeah.
paper away. Just tell me what the idea is. And we pitched the show, and I had no idea that in that moment, because I didn't know the language of the television industry. In that moment, I ended up selling the series in the room.
Wow.
And
which rarely even happens today.
Never happens. And she had asked, like, tell me about the series. And I told her it's this multi-generational family, doing a series of episodes on following these multi-generational family-run food businesses and what makes them tick, and how they've been able to sustain themselves. And it's going to be hosted by Joan Cusack and blah, blah, blah. And she said, stop, wait a second. Joan Cusack, the actress? And I said, yeah. And she said, how do you know Joan Cusack? I go, well, she's my business partner. And she goes, really? And then she starts telling me about how someone from business affairs is going to call me something about 6 over 60. And it turns out that she was saying 6 episodes of 60 minutes long, 6 1-hour episodes and business affairs is, by the time something gets to business affairs, it's because they want to negotiate a contract.
Yeah.
None of this information that I had any knowledge of.
Sure.
And it turned into a series. So
that's amazing. I mean, producing back then is also so different. I mean, I remember even doing research a few years later in America to find, specific meatball shops or lasagna spots or souvlaki or things like that. But you're going to Europe in 2001 to find a very specific type of restaurant. How are you doing it? What did you run up against? How much of it was set before you landed, and how much did you find out like once you got there?
All of it, I would say. Most of it was set before we landed. Did a lot of research, had a team of people in New York on my team who were doing research. And then we had fixers in each market who were kind of giving us some of the local kind of reconnaissance on some of the research that we were finding in New York with our team. And then just cross-referencing and then making lots of phone calls and doing lots of emails. And that's how we kind of found these gems. It's funny, I was in Italy back in February, and I went back to the restaurant that we filmed 20 years ago.
Wow.
And I walk in the door, and the daughter, who is now, she was still affiliated with the restaurant when we filmed there 20 years ago, but now she was running it. Her mom, I think, is like 98 years old now, but her mom was the person that was running the restaurant when we filmed there, or was very involved. She was there every day. I walk in the door and she sees me and she goes, and she recognized me, and she opens her arms and gives me this hug. And we had a meal there just back in February. It was exactly the way it was 20 years ago. And some of the signature dishes were still on the menu. And that's how you know that they're doing something right, when you can stand the test of time like they have. It's the oldest restaurant in Florence, by the way, and it's been there forever. And it's called Camillo, and you have to go. It's just an experience.
Look, my favorite spot in Florence is this place called Vini Vecchi Sapori, and the kids just took over, and you can just feel it's so different when you eat in other cities outside of America, and it's just like you're looking so much in attempt for those like generational restaurants, and here it's less and less where you can find a spot that's generational in the same way. It's usually, the ones that come to mind are like Canners or Katz's or, Keen's or, something that has legacy and things like that. So you're doing the show with Joan Cusack, and food is just taking off. Like food is becoming huge.
Mm-hmm.
I remember doing a show for the pre-cooking channel for Food 2 on underground supper clubs in Brooklyn, and you were doing one down in Athens.
Correct.
Yeah. And it's always amazing when things like in the zeitgeist like that. But what was it like working in TV, developing these ideas, being a guy who had I have this product that you can look at? How are you navigating the scene? What did you feel at that time?
Challenging. I mean, it was very challenging because back then, we did the Four Horsemen, which you're referencing, which is
Sure.
about the supper club in Athens, Georgia, back in 2010. So found them in 2009, found them in a little blurb, actually, in Food and Wine magazine, like tiny little mention of this group and what they were doing. And I was intrigued, and I decided I was going to go down and I was going to meet them and kind of find out what they were all about. But you start back then as a production company, all the investment on developing an idea, developing talent is borne by the production company. Very rarely did a network give you development dollars to go out and pursue something. That was not really existent. So you're bankrolling this idea on your own dime. But I went down there and really witnessed what they were doing, and it was an ensemble group of, an ensemble cast of characters,
Mm-hmm.
and they were very, very interesting. And some of them were professional cooks, some of them were just enthusiasts, some of them had this, one woman who was the only woman in the group. She had an immense amount of knowledge about wine and wine pairings. So I just thought I experienced one of their dinners, and I thought, wow, this is pretty interesting. And so I went back, wrote a pitch deck, went to Cooking Channel and said, to our development exec, and said, I really believe that this is something spectacular and we should go and we should shoot
100%.
We should shoot this. And so she says to me, well, we don't have any development dollars, but I really like this idea. So I said, look, I'll spend the money to go shoot it.
Of course.
I just want to know that I'm shooting it and that there's a genuine interest and that I'm not on a fishing expedition.
Right. And that I can shoot it and approach it with maybe that it might go to air. So I'll get my release forms and I'll make sure that the audio is clean. Let me know that there could be a reality at the end.
Exactly. And so I went down and we filmed, and this was just filming the sizzle. We were doing a sizzle. While I was simultaneously shooting the sizzle, I was trying to negotiate talent option deals with each of the 6 members of the Ensemble cast. Look, it's hard enough to negotiate, an option deal with one person who has not yet been discovered, but thinks that their value is much greater than it's been proven to be just yet. So you're trying to, negotiate those deals, and we did. It was challenging, but we got through it. And so I had the talent deals in place. We had the sizzle reel that we produced. We went back to the network. They see it and they're like, okay, yeah, we want to do a 1-hour special on this, right?
Amazing.
So we shot this 1-hour special, and beautifully shot and very untraditionally shot. I mean, if I sent it to you today and you watched it, you'd think that you were watching something on Netflix. Because
I went back and I watched it, and it just, I'll say ahead of its time.
I think it was.
Yeah, it feels.
I appreciate that.
I just see it, and I was like, oh, there's a lot of things I see now with the follow and the verite and the way that recipes are weaved in, and it's you learn about the TV industry where you want to push forward, but there's only so much forward you can push where people go I don't know what I'm watching. And that's no one's fault. It's just go I can't really latch on because I don't know where I'm supposed to be looking.
It's so interesting that you say that, because the show goes up on the air. They greenlit, I think, 7 or 8 1-hour specials that year.
I did one of them. I did Reinventing the Meal, the Richard Blais one. Yeah.
And I think according to them, it was the, actually it wasn't according to them. So the show goes up, it does what it does. I find out later that it was the 3rd highest performing special out of all 8 that they had greenlit in terms of ratings. And then I find out later that it was the 5th highest rated show in all of primetime when it premiered.
So you're thinking Business Affairs is about to call you back, right?
I'm thinking this is going, I'm excited. And then, this is super exciting. And then I didn't know all of the details of the ratings, but let's just say I told you earlier that I ended up selling my first company to Gray Advertising.
Yeah.
connections were pretty deep into the advertising world.
Yeah.
So I kind of knew what the ratings were because networks don't like to share ratings.
Sure.
But agencies like to ask for them, and they will see them. And so I knew what the ratings were, and I saw the ratings, and they were. This was a show that should have gone to series, and so
it was a transitional time. I'll say it because I remember that time as well. And for anyone, we don't have to get into the details. Let's just say things are in transitions, and I think a lot of shows that like yours that would have gone just for one reason or another. But that's the industry.
It's the industry, and what's ironic is that 2 weeks. So I have a meeting that I go back in to go try to plead my case.
Sure.
I'm pleading my case, and the person that I'm pleading my case to tries to tell me that the show didn't do well, and I tried to tell this person that it did. And we sit down in front of his television monitor, and we look at the ratings on the screen, and he looks at the screen, and he looks at him, and he goes, "I didn't think it rated that well." I go, "Are you what? Are you kidding me? Like you because they had already told me the show wasn't going to series."
Yeah.
And now I'm in the office trying to plead my case. And by the way, the day that I went in the office to plead my case, we find out that the show had been nominated for a James Beard Award.
Sure.
So now I'm sitting here going like, the ratings were good. We got nominated for the James Beard Award. Like, why are we not going to series? And
yeah, for all of you listening, this is what you can expect in a long career of television. Let's take a quick commercial break and listen to a song. And when we come back, I want to talk about Bike to Bites. Here we go. Song on Snacky Tunes on HRN. Welcome back to Snacky Tunes. We're sitting down with Garrett, Bess, host of Bike to Bites. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit because you did the Four Horsemen, you did your cross-country show, Good Food America, but then the food show, culinary show landscape starts to change. Where it was restaurant, docu-follow, cooking, things like that, it starts getting more into competition. How did you deal with the shift? What were you thinking? What were you coming up against when you've had 3-4 successful series of this one type of food genre, and now it's shifting to something else?
It's interesting. As that kind of massive paradigm shift was happening into competition space, it was also a shift for me mentally about, risk reward, about I put all these dollars into developing this talent, developing shows. And, if we're lucky, something will go to series. And if something goes to series or goes to pilot and then goes to series, and if it goes to series, it's a short form series and, a short order series. And so you start crunching numbers and you're realizing all of the effort that you're putting in against what you're able to kind of keep in your own pocket. The math wasn't working.
The math ain't mathin'.
Yeah. And so I always was doing, during my time at Gray, corporate commercial work. And at the time that I started my production company, Two River Pictures, we had already started to dive deep into doing some corporate video work, with a unique specialty in the tech sector.
Mm-hmm.
And that business just exploded for us. We were doing a ton of work out of Silicon Valley and still are. It's a huge part of our business. I call it the two sides of my brain. One is this creative, whimsical, travel, food focused side. The other is, and in there's lots of ideas and ways in which to kind of develop something. And on the corporate video side, it's more technical in nature, but it's very interesting technology and how it's kind of changing the world. And so you can get excited for different reasons and dive into creating content around that. And that's what started happening. And so we really, as a production company, made a conscious decision to put the TV world on hold for a little while. And because I didn't want to do big competition shows, I did not want to, and while I think you can't deny their success, I think that there are people who do it really, really well. To me, somebody who grew up watching the early days of Food Network, watching public television cooking shows, it wasn't the same thing. And so it wasn't something that I got super excited about on the competition side. And I made a decision to focus on the corporate stuff. And it wasn't until the pandemic that things shifted again for me, in terms of, we didn't stop doing the corporate work, although the corporate work stopped in the context of how we were doing it prior to the pandemic. It didn't fully stop. It changed dramatically. And so we had to really pivot very, very quickly. And we did. And we ended up producing huge, huge virtual events for some of our big corporate clients. And that's what kept us alive during the pandemic. We were able to pivot pretty quickly and salvage our, the ability to survive by doing that. But I had done one big project, and I remember we were supposed to get another project from this one client. And that at this time we were starting to come out of the pandemic, and they decided to go back to live events. And so we ended up not winning this piece of business, and I was feeling really, really soul sucked. And my wife sends me to this place in the Berkshires called Miraval. And during this time, I start riding a bicycle pretty obsessively. Start riding a bike. Started out doing 3 miles and thought, wow, that was the biggest ride I've ever done. But did a 3 mile ride. And the 3 miles became 5, and the 5 became 10, and then 15, and then 20. And I started riding this bicycle all the time. So she sends me off to the Berkshires, to this place to go clear my head. I take my bike up there. I journal. while I'm up there for those 5 days that I'm out there riding my bike. And I come up, how do I find a project where I can marry all of the things that I love and that I'm passionate about, producing, food, travel, cycling. There's got to be, an idea, and it popped into my head. Well, why not do this show called Bike to Bites? And I wrote out what that would look like and how that formatically would construct itself. And we came back and I told my team, they thought I was crazy. Hey, we're going to produce a pilot. And the first question that someone on the team asks me is, who's buying it? We're not.
Yeah, sure.
And I said, it doesn't matter who's buying it. We're doing it because it'll be a fun project. And it's been a real hard couple of years with this pandemic. And we've been creatively challenged. Let's go out and just do this. And so we did. And I sent it to my former network executive at Food Network. And I sent it to my former network executive at Travel Channel. And the guy that gave me my break, truly in the television industry, that guy that I told you that kept his word 20 years ago, was now running a brand new network called EarthX TV out of Dallas. And he sees the show, the sizzle for Bike to Bites. And he calls me up and he's like, dude, I had no clue you were hosting this thing. No.
Yeah. Let's talk about that, because you sort of flew over that part of just saying, I'm going to host it. What made you want to go in front of the camera after all these years?
I knew the concept that was in my head.
Sure.
And I've known how to direct and produce talent. And so I just was like, for the purposes of a proof of concept, I can communicate what this is better than anybody that I would direct to be able to do it, because it was coming out of my head. It was like I had a vision for what it wanted to be. So my intention initially was to truly just do it as the proof of concept. It wasn't with this idea, I want to step in front of the camera and host a television show. That was my burning desire forever and ever to do. And now I get to do it. But I knew what I wanted the show to look like. And so I was like, you know what, I'll just do this to kind of prove out what this thing is. And, to be honest, I think that corporate work that I was referencing earlier that we kind of pivoted to out of television, back in 2012, when we made that decision to stay out of TV for a little while, all those interviews and things that I've done with these founders of these tech companies that are just amazing. I developed, I think I might have always had it, but I kind of developed this knowing how to talk to people and just really, and had a really genuine curiosity about people. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this proof of concept and, we'll shoot it. And so that's how it came to be. I stepped in front of the camera. I did it with no intention of this thing, me turning into the person that would ultimately host it. And so I send it off to each of these people, and he calls me up and he's like, I had no idea that you were hosting this thing. And I go, no. It's a proof of concept. I just I have some talent that I'd like to do. He goes, no. He goes, I love it. In fact, he goes, I love it so much I want to buy it. And I was like, what? And he goes, no, I do. And I go, well, great. So let's talk about that list of talent. He goes, you're not listening to me.
You're not hearing me.
You're not hearing me. I want you to host it. And that's how it kind of came to be. So,
and it's amazing because you're entering season 2, which is always, I think, the toughest season to get, the second one. Because once you get season 2 and it's doing well, it just sort of, they're like, great, you're filling X amount of hours or commitment, things like that. What did you learn during season 1 going into season 2? And when did you get the idea that you were going to get picked up for a second season?
I learned a lot in season 1. We changed a couple of crew positions in season 1 from season 2, and not because we didn't have talented people working with us. I think I learned a lot about crew dynamics, what worked, what didn't work. When you're traveling with a small band of people on the road in cars, literally driving across the country, you learn a lot about each other and and how people kind of play in the sandbox together or don't play in the sandbox together. But everyone else, everyone for the most part, got along. But I learned that there were some things for season 2 that I would have liked to have done differently. I wanted to get more aggressive in terms of some of our aerial photography. I wanted to figure out a better rigging for how to do the bicycle shots. So there's all those things. And then, and I could certainly go deep dive into all the production things that we learned along the way. But those are some of the big top line things. And we finished season 1, delivered it in December. It started airing in April of 2022. And by June of 2022, we got June of, let me go back. So we started in 2022. And then it aired in April of 23. And then in June of 23, we got the green light to go ahead and do a season 2. And because they loved the way the show was looking, they thought it was as a new network trying to find their way, as an establishing themselves as a new network, they found the content very super ad friendly. They loved the deep dive that we were doing with these, with these restaurateurs and these chefs. They loved the cycling and the vistas that we captured. So it was, I think, it was a pretty quick decision on their part to go to a season 2, and we were super excited about it.
Now, I know for season 2, you're doing even more biking, a crazy amount of biking. And I have to imagine that not everyone's riding along with you. So when you're out there on the road by yourself, music, podcasts, what are we doing? Nothing? Nature?
Yeah. I don't put headsets in my ears. One, I really want to be attentive to there's a lot going on when we're filming this. My attention to the road, and also my attention to the crew and the director and the camera guy that's riding next to me in a car. And even when I don't ride filming a television show, I don't ride listening to music or podcasts. I love hearing the crunch of it's a good noise. The road on my tires. I love hearing the things that are happening around me. And I think it's a Zen space for me. So it truly is. Like I ride 3-4 times a week now, and it is truly cathartic in terms of finding some peace, finding some sanity. I don't think you'd get that if you're listening to a playlist, although I know people who do. They like to ride with music in their ears, to each his own.
To each their own. Well, listen, Garrett, congratulations. Before we go, if you got to pick 1 or 2 bites from your adventures from the last 2 seasons, what's sticking in your mind?
Wow, this is a tough question. Well, the lobster tail from the lobster tail from Mike's Pastry in Boston is epic.
Yeah. All time. And then I would say, oh God, I don't want to offend anyone because there's different tastes for different reasons. Like I will tell you in Minneapolis, my friend Chef Gavin Kaysen, that croissant that he makes at that bakery is as good as anything probably better than anything I've had. Shh, don't tell the French, but you could eat there and feel like you're in France. Here, that's the best compliment you can give to somebody. Yes. We'll make sure to geo-block this for all of our French listeners.
Yeah.
Well, listen, congratulations. If people want to watch the show or follow along with your adventures, where can they go?
So it's EarthX TV, and EarthX is carried in the U.S. on DirecTV and on Spectrum Cable. So if you have those, that's where you can find EarthX. You can also find EarthX TV on Fubo. They're streaming the entire network on Fubo, and that's where you can find it there. And if you're in the UK or Ireland, you can find it on Sky TV and Freeview.
Amazing. Well, congratulations. Thank you so much. Shout out to Kate for putting this together. We have another song from the archives and then a live performance here on Snacky Tunes on HRN.
I've come undone by a femme fatale and turned Moorish machination. When I saw her that day, the walls were heavy with the things we didn't say. So what if I don't come back? Would you fireworks we never shot off that summer. Tangled webs got in our way. But in those moments I felt giant. 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 In those moments I felt giant.
Moira, welcome to Snacky Tunes. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down, chat with us, play some live songs.
Thanks for having me.
Music in any situation, I think pre-internet, right, shows you
Yeah.
what a bigger world could be out there. And especially if you feel that what's going on at home or the life that's laid out in front of you that may not be your choice can be at times confining. Music
Yes,
really
that's
is opening up,
well put.
right?
Yeah, it really opens up the world to you. You're so right. And that feeling of isolation or separation or not being where you would like to be, that can be any kid anywhere. And in my case, folk music still, that came with me, and classical music too, but the farming part, the elements and the wisdom, some of it came with me, but most of it I left behind. And one other thing I think that I took with me from being a farmer kid in Vermont was this sense that everybody can do music, and it's not for just really fancy and talented people, So it's
Sure.
this sense of
Yeah.
being with, singing with, making music with,
Mm.
rather than for, so.
Well, what is this last song, Wiseman, about before you play it for us? Take us out.
So Wise Man is just about the wisdom of love, I guess is the way to put it. It's the wisdom of love, and it follows sort of the inner life of a person who on the outside looks to be, the icon of wisdom. So so this is his story.
Amazing. Well, listen, thank you so much. Here we
Thank
go.
you.
Wiseman, Moira Smiley on Snacky Tunes on HRN. We will see you next time. Stay safe out there, everyone.
God gave the wise man a long gray beard, told him to walk on the land. Wise man, he comes with a golden tongue and a question in each hand. Wise man, he comes with a golden tongue and a question in each hand. Oh, why must I wear a long gray beard? Why must I walk on the land? When all my life I was penniless and poor, drove Was it my love for my wife and my child? And now in the earth do they? Was it my love for my wife and my child? And now in the earth do they? My love, she kept me through storms. Nothing in the world that I fear. Though she's gone, her spirit lingers on and is with me as I travel here. Though she's gone, her spirit lingers on and is with me as I travel here. And as I walk my way with my long gray beard to the high gates above, tell every stranger and friend that I meet that I found heaven in love. Tell every stranger and friend that I meet I found heaven in love. And I tell every stranger and friend that I meet I found heaven in love.
We talk about food, we talk about music with musical dudes. Finger on the pulse, snacky tunes.
Snacky Tunes is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.
Hey, it's Francis Lamb, host of The Splendid Table. Every week on our show, we talk about food and cooking and the meanings of food and cooking. We talk with the most interesting people in food about their techniques, their culture, and everything in between. Whether it's about how fried chicken took over the world or how Instagram changes the way people are actually eating. It's a food show where everyone is welcome. Come join us. You can listen to The Splendid Table wherever you get your podcasts.